What is going on, grinders and ladies and gentlemen? If this is your first time tuning in, I go by Andre, Jersey 26, and I'm here with two of some of the brightest minds in this industry. To bring you a new show that we've been having called FanDuel Fridays. We'll be breaking down briefly the MLB slate. Just briefly, because we still gonna have Grinders Live and still have Crunch Time, which is also sponsored by FanDuel, by the way. But today we're just gonna bring you down like a little bit of strategy just to give you some extra prep for the slates on Friday. So here I have TJ and I have Justin. TJ, how you doing today?
Doing very well. Finally back in my own house, brand new house. We got internet now. Don't have to go to a parent's place or a friend's place. Feels good to be in my own home getting this done, and I'm excited to talk some baseball.
That's good. That's good to hear. What about you, Luuch? How's everything going on your side?
What's going on? Congrats on the new house, TJ. Awesome stuff.
Thank you.
Big game. This might be the biggest slate of the season, so I'm glad we get to break in this new FanDuel show for everybody today.
Yes, definitely. The biggest and probably one of the better slates that we've had thus far. I expect a lot of runs be put up here. And we also just wanted to let you know, since it is sponsored by FanDuel, they do have a $150K Friday MLB squeeze with $30K up top for $5.55 going on. And also the monster for $100K up top for $555. And if you guys are interested, I typically have done this in the past. The 2 million World Fantasy Baseball Championship qualifier for $333, where first place gets a trip. This year, I really haven't announced it yet, but as soon as they do, I will be glad to give that information to you guys. But it's a trip pretty much to win, go on to win a prize for $500K up top later on in the year. It's excellent, it's phenomenal. But on a couple of those myself, I chase them all the time. But neither here nor there. We are here to talk down and break this slate down. So we're gonna start with the pitching side of things today. And we're gonna start with you, Luuch. What are some of your favorite pitchers today from just breaking down this slate?
Yeah, I recorded our MLB morning grind with the Chief last night, and there was a whole bunch of guys right off the bat that we were able to just quote unquote eliminate from our pitching pool because on this slate the price was just no good, or maybe the upside just wasn't there. I think Carlos Rodon and Dylan Cease are extremely interesting. I think they are good for raw points and have 50-point ceilings tonight. You can see on our lineup HQ, I have the MLB Plate IQ projections loaded up in here. Carlos Rodon is the highest priced pitcher on FanDuel at 10-1. Looks like we have him projected at about 27% ownership. Freddie Peralta, didn't really have it his first start, but we know his upside is tremendous. He whiffs 30+% of batters, both sides of the plate, taking on a Cards team who doesn't strike out much. So I think Peralta is more for like a large field tournament play. And until we're getting into the second turn of these rotations, things are volatile. Some guys are still ramping up. Maybe some guys don't have their best stuff yet. I don't know where Peralta ranks in that range, so I'm a little hesitant to use him in small field stuff. But if you're playing, a large field tournament like the contest you just talked about that FanDuel's running, $5.55, a ton of entries, then you want to go for pitchers who are going to be pretty low here. Dylan Cease here, I'm a little surprised that he's coming in at about 12% projected ownership. We have him at here. He looked great in his opening start, had a bunch of Ks, only threw 79 pitches, I believe. But he's only going to keep ramping up. There are some strikeouts in that Tampa Bay lineup. I'm shocked here that Rodon is projected to come in higher than Cease. I know Rodon with 12 guys looked fantastic, but Cleveland's been ripping the cover off the baseball, and I kind of thought maybe there'd be some recency bias there. So if this holds true, I'm going to be a big Dylan Cease fan from FanDuel at almost a third of the ownership or half of the ownership as Carlos Rodon is projected to come in at here. What are your thoughts on these top guys?
Yeah. So TJ, what are your thoughts on these top guys that the Luch has mentioned here on this slate today so far? I know Rodon's in a good spot against Cleveland. C's lower home, but going against Tampa Bay, which is a line that we always alternates and changes. And Freddie Peralta, St. Louis has a lot of good bats that hit in their lineup. But what is your opinion on these guys here?
Well, so far my strategy this season, for the most part, has been just getting different than the field is with these pitchers because it's early in the year. There's the shortened spring training. We've seen a lot more, even more variance than we usually do with pitchers so far to start the season. None more so than the other night. We got a super chalky Yu Darvish. I had my top lineup was with Yu Darvish, and I think I finished like 40 points away from first place with a minus 16 from you. It was absolutely devastating. But it just like furthered that point of when we see somebody like Carlos Rodon on tonight's slate, he's the most expensive pitcher. He's going to be about 30% owned. I kind of just want to get different. I like Rodon. Like if I'm playing cash games, he's the first one I'm putting in there. If I'm playing single entries, him and Cease are still like definitely very interesting. But other guys on this slate that will still have high upside, like you have a 7,500 Marcus Stroman, 8,200 Herman Marquez. Both of those guys are in Coors, so obviously it's not ideal, but they're two ground ball pitchers who could still put up very strong games, and they have very low price tags. And so I think I'm going to be in tournaments looking to get a little bit different than these top three most expensive pitchers, Peralta, Rodon, and Cease, who are probably going to be our three highest owned pitchers on the slate as well.
Okay, I completely understand that. Me personally, with those top three, I love them for sure. If I'm playing like 159, I'm mixing them a lot of them. But the biggest one I'm gonna try to get an edge with in the ownership wise would be a guy going like Jordan Montgomery, going against the Baltimore Orioles. They do have a lot of guys in there. I know they do have a lot of power. But they do strike out a lot, and Montgomery in the past has put up a good numbers against the Orioles. So I would take my chances there and see what happens at low ownership since like you said, pitching has been volatile so far at the beginning of this season. Other than that's where I would land at. I don't think I would be getting any further down here, especially on FanDuel tonight, which is what the main focus is. It's just too messy down there to get below these guys in these matchups that could pretty much offer not as much upside as guys like Rendon, Peralta, and Cease can. Other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Do you guys have anything else that you guys like to say about the pitching?
One last thing I want to say about like these expensive guys is I'm definitely not going to be going full fade on them by any means, but if I do decide to run 150 tonight, then I'm going to be looking to get probably like 10% of a bunch of different pitchers and probably not more than about 15% of anybody, whereas somebody like Rodon is looking to get close to 30 tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, I think Marquez is kind of interesting here. He's kind of a Coors Field anomaly. At least last season, he was pretty darn good at Coors Field. I want to see what this Cubs team rolls out here. They have your Madrigals and your Nico Horners, and Suzuki has been awesome. Those guys like to put the bat on the ball. But you also have guys with super high K rates. Wisdom is pushing 35, 40%. Contreras over 30, Ian Happ over 30% K rate here. And Marquez, you're going to save, 1,800, $2,000 if you're willing to go that route here. Looked pretty good against the Dodgers, who are objectively the best lineup in baseball to open the season at home. Marquez got through 7 innings here and got 37 FanDuel points. So no one is really going to have Marquez. Look, he's not even 1% owned on FanDuel, so it's not hard to go overweight here. I think he's super interesting. There's a couple other guys there's just a big pricing discrepancy between FanDuel and competing sites here. Brad Keller's a little too expensive. Don't really want to go there. Another guy who I'm not super interested tonight, but for the future, Mackenzie Gore making his debut against Atlanta, highly touted pitching prospect. But in FanDuel at the pitcher spot, you need a source of raw points here. Like, you want 40 points out of your pitcher, most likely to have your lineup to have a shot for tournaments.
I completely agree with you, and we don't know. And also, the quality start is very, very important on FanDuel too, as you get 6 points for that. So that's why you want to also try to ideally get the pitcher that you think is stretched out, especially at this one with the second start and also being a shortened spring training. Hopefully, getting these pitchers second time go around, most of them are stretched out to the point where they can make it 6 innings if they don't get blown up. But Mackenzie Gore being his first start, I don't think he will go that long into the game. So now let's talk about a little bit of some stacks on the opposite side. But before we get into the stacks, actually, I want to break down what is your strategy for this being an 11-game slate. What do you typically like to do? Do you typically run your stacks out there like strictly like 4 4s, 4 3s, 3 3s, or is there any way you divvy it up? What do you guys normally like to do?
I like to keep it to almost completely 4-4s with like when I'm building in lineup HQ, I usually run something like 70% 4-4s, 20% 4-3s, and 10% 4-2s, something like that. And I don't always stick to that. Like I do when I have the time to, and I'm not scrambling right before a lock. I like to go through them, make sure they make somewhat sense. The people in the lineup are somewhat close together for the most part and stuff like that. And so I love in lineup HQ, our new tool, I think it just got added last year, the only in stack option, where you just get to check players only in stack, because it's so great because it allows you to get your high upside players who are the high strikeout, high power players. You get to keep them as your one-offs. You get to have those guys that maybe you don't want to get a ton of exposure to that team, but you like the power upside of one player. It allows you to get those in those 4-2, 4-3 lineups while getting the rest of your guys just in stacks.
Yeah, and I think that's a good tool for like the guys that have speed upside and maybe not power. Like, would you want a one-off Miles Straw? Maybe not necessarily. But if he's hitting ahead of a bunch of Cleveland bats you're stacking and you think he's going to get on base, score a couple runs, swipe a couple bags, then it kind of makes sense. And a guy like that will probably be lower owned just because he doesn't offer the power. So great tool. And I'm really glad we got that implemented here into lineup HQ as well.
Okay. LuuchE, any type of different stacks you like to do with strategy wise, or you're the same thing pretty much?
You know what? Like for me, and I'm sure you guys both agree, I'm always full stacking whatever site I'm on for tournaments, whether it's 4 on FanDuel or wherever you're playing. I always go for the full stack, and I think that gives you the most upside typically, especially for large field tournaments. You have to hit the stack. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the 4-4s on such a big slate, 11 games here. We got 22 teams on the card. It's a lot bigger than anything we've seen so far this year. But, we saw so much power the last year and a half. So many guys hitting home runs. The ball's going over the fence. I don't mind having a little more one-off volatility if I'm throwing in 100, 150 lineups. But I definitely like the correlation if I'm playing like a 3 max or something like that.
Okay, yeah, and me myself personally on these type of big slates, I will stick to like the 4. I'm not a big fan of 4-4s personally, but on this type of slates, I would probably run a little bit, like probably like 10% of them. I'll be more focused on going like 4-3s and 4-2s, just because I want to, like I said, get the full stack in there and at least have running back with at least 2 guys from the same team, maybe even 3 or 4. Very little, but that's the way I would approach it and run it, and just hope for the best, because on a state like this big, a stack is definitely going to win it. Like there's no way around it. It's too many good hitters out there, and too many hitting situations and hitting weather. So that's what I would focus on, personally. But now let's get into also some of your favorite stacks on the slate. LuuchE, we'll start with you. What are some of your favorite stacks that you're looking at today on this slate?
Yeah, I mean, for tournaments, I like the Astros. It's not like we have a team total over 5 or anything. We got them at a 4.36 team total against Marco Gonzalez. The hitting environment might not be the best, and I think we might get decent ownership on the Astros, specifically the righties here. Gonzalez just cannot take care of business. He's horrible against right-handed hitters. He's a sinker ball pitcher, but against righties, he has like a 50% fly ball rate. So he just can't keep the ball on the ground. And, there aren't many slates this season where we can get the Astros at any kind of a decent tournament ownership here where they're not just straight chalk. So I'm going to play the Astros while we have an opportunity to. I haven't looked at the ownerships quite yet, but the Astros are interesting. You got to like the Yankees against Jordan Lyles, although I just feel like whenever you full stack them, they flop, right? It's like you want to look at those power bats as one-offs or secondary stacks. But Jordan Lyles gave up 38 home runs last season. I know they pushed the fences back at Camden, but I'm not sure how much it matters when Jordan Lyles is on the bump. I'd love to mention Toronto, but I'm not going to steal TJ's thunder here. So I do like the Blue Jays, but I'll let him talk about them.
Yeah, I like the Blue Jays a ton tonight, and I like the Houston call. Anytime you have a team with the power that Houston does and they're not picking up much ownership, I like it a lot. And the Yankees, the Dodgers, both of those teams are very high upside spots. They're in a great position, but the ownership's coming with them too. So I think in cash games, single entries, you could potentially be looking at a lot of those players, especially some Yankees outfielders, and then some players like Muncy and Trey Turner for the Dodgers in cash and stuff like that. But for tournaments, I love the Blue Jays tonight. The Blue Jays are something that I've been saying so far this year, and something Cheese has been saying as well, is they're a team you can stack on any single slate. It doesn't matter who they're playing. It doesn't matter who the pitcher is. You can always play the Blue Jays. And tonight they're in a pretty good spot. And they're not picking up at near as much ownership as the Yankees or the Dodgers are with the same type of upside. And they play Oakland, and anytime I like Oakland matchups when Oakland's on the road, because typically people like they often have a lot of fly ball pitchers on their team. They got that big park. And so when you get somewhere smaller like Toronto that they're going to be instead of Oakland, I love the power for Toronto tonight.
Yeah, I completely agree with those stacks. Houston's probably one of my favorite top stacks to go with tonight. One stack that I am looking at also as well that is a little bit different from you guys. Is going with Kansas City against Scuba. That's one team I think that has a chance to put up a few nice runs here tonight. As you can see, if you look on the lineup base Q, we have their ownership coming in at around 5%, but their smash value coming in at like 7%. To me, that's pretty good. And the top value is 9%. That's high. I think that they offer a lot of value with the low own guys that they have, but also the low dollar amount. I think the most expensive guy on the Houston side is Salvatore Perez, and he's coming at 3,600. Everyone else is like 3,400 or below. So I'm definitely interested in Kansas City today, and I'll be overweight on them for sure today. And just hoping that they work out the best for me with going against Scuba today.
Yeah, Kansas City was
another thing too that we mentioned liking Marquez and Stroman being interesting at that price tag, but these Coors Field teams are still picking up no ownership after disappointing last night. And so even though this is two good pitchers lining up in this game, it is still Coors Field. There's tons of upside. We've seen what can happen, and this game's not picking up much ownership, so that's very interesting for tournaments as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I have the Rockies up on lineup HQ right now. The highest projected owned player as of right now we have is Charlie Blackmon at 7%. So wow, you got guys like Chris Bryant and CJ Cron coming in at single-digit ownership. It's early in the season. Marcus Stroman at Coors. I like that call a lot. Very interesting, and I like your Kansas City call as well, Andre. I want to bring up Texas too, if you don't mind. A team I kind of wasn't thinking about initially yesterday when I thought about the slate, but as I recorded last night with Chief, Reed Detmer's another young guy who just hasn't really figured it out at the major league level for the Angels. Walks a ton of righties, gives up a ton of contact to righties, and I think outside of Seager, you're going to see a lot of right-handed bats here for the Rangers. That game has a very healthy game total. We have Texas projected to score 5 runs right now. And like on this full slate, if you're full stacking, like who's going to play Nick Solak, right? Like who's going to play these guys? Who's going to pay for a catcher on FanDuel when you don't have to play one? Mitch Garver is 5% in a fantastic spot here, but he's a catcher and you don't have to play one on FanDuel. So I think Texas is kind of sneaky. These guys are affordable, which could help you get in one of those high-end pitchers as well.
Yeah, definitely for sure and agree. So I think that's what's going to I think determine the outcome is more so I think pitching going to determine the outcome as far as what you go with because like you said that's most volatile with hitting obviously is more volatile, but you gotta have the right pitcher just to even be in it. And get also the right stacks because the cost effective of how much a pitcher is and how much they put up versus how much your stack does will ultimately determine everything. So yeah, that's all I have as far as when it comes to breaking it down. Do you guys have any last things before we get ready to get out of here?
Not particularly. The biggest thing would just be if you're playing in a large field with a big first prize, don't be afraid to get different. We've seen so far MLB variance is always bigger than any other sport, but especially in a year where we had a shortened spring training, people didn't know when the season was going to be starting. They just whipped everything together. There's going to be even more than we usually see. So don't be afraid, no matter how chalky a set of people are. If you like another spot, go for it because it doesn't matter if the ownership's not there. That should get you excited, not scare you off. So don't be afraid to get different.
Yeah, for me, I guess is I don't mind the bottom of this Dodgers order. I have them up on lineup HQ. You know, all the huge Dodger bats, 19% Mookie, 19% Trey Toner, Freddie and Muncy are pushing 25 to 30%. Tough pill to swallow for tournaments on an 11-game slate. We mentioned the Yankees earlier, Judge and Donaldson carrying crazy ownership too. You know, I mean, the low owned guys in this Dodgers order can definitely produce, and there's really no shame in stacking the bottom order of this LA Dodgers lineup, who are better than the top half of like 85% of other major league teams. Cody Bellinger's getting a lot of heat, but he's been playing really well after the first couple of games this season. He's getting on base, he's stealing bases, he's hitting home runs. We got look at this Dodgers order: Bellinger, Turner, Chris Taylor, Will Smith, all sub 4% right here. So, you know, you can get different with picking completely different teams, but there's also no shame in stacking the lower owned hitters on a team with a high projected team total.
And I personally agree with that 100%. That's a way to get different and go with the top stacks too, because most people don't like to play the bottom of the orders because they're afraid that they're not going to get to like maybe 4 at bats or 5. I'm perfectly fine with that because all it takes is 1 home run, maybe 2 home runs to put you at being one of the better players on the slate tonight. So don't be afraid of that. Like TJ said, to get different as well. If you love a stack, stick with it. This big game, this late tonight, ownership is not really going to matter. It's going to be probably concentrated on a few teams, but playing the stack that you love and you know and you believe in tonight is a way to go with, I would say, and stick with it and to see it through all the way. And hopefully it just pays off for you in the end when you're at the top, winning 30K or 100K, or even taking down a seat in a live final. Now, before we get ready to get out of here, I just want to ask you guys each, what's your home run call of the day?
Home run call of the day. I really liked what Luuch was just talking about that bottom half of the lineup. I can tell you for sure, as long as the order goes as I think it does, I will definitely have a stack of Chris Taylor, Cody Bellinger, Gavin Lux, and one of either Will Smith or Justin Turner. My home run call of the day, in terms of a bit of a sneaky one, is going to be Gavin Lux. And then on the top end, Vladdy Guerrero is going to come back from his 0 for 4 strikeout nights last night with 2 bombs tonight.
I thought you were going to hit me with the Matt Chapman revenge game home run call. But you know what? We're going to go back to Houston. I'm going to go with Jose Altuve, and the hotter take is he leads off the game with a home run. So that's my home run call.
Nice. And I'm going to sit there and go with the guy who's been playing a lot better lately, Cody Bellinger against Gutierrez to hit a home run. And I'm also going to go with if for Houston, if Alvarez is in the lineup, I'm going to go with Jordan on the lefty masher and him to hit a home run today.
Love it.
Cool.
All right, so that's it for us today. Where can they find you guys at? Just wanted to let them know so that if they want to follow you, guys have any questions they want to ask these guys, where can they find you out on Twitter or Instagram or anywhere, Luuch?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at the J Carlucci. Do a whole bunch of Rotogrinder stuff with you guys, and also at our partner site scoresandodds.com. A lot of great free content and picks over there as well.
What about you, TJ?
You can find me on Twitter, TJ_Zwarych 5 ZWARYCH. I'll also be on Grinders Live later today. And if you're into my sweet little background here, I host the Agents of Fandom podcast, so you can check that out as well.
Perfect. And I go by Jersey26_DFS on Twitter, Jersey26 on Instagram. If you have any questions or anything like that, or about any plays, any pitching things you want to know, or even any betting picks that I have, hit me up on one of those sites. I'll be glad to give you some info and help you guys out. And thank you. This will be the FanDuel Friday baseball pod or video. And hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit us up. And for that, we'll get out of here.